Hi, Gary Corpenning here. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about James. We're going to continue our study with that. But first, I just want to share with you about me. I enjoy fishing, and I'm not very good at it. I will admit that, but I enjoy going out to the water and trying to catch fish. Um, as I share this with you, we are one day away from the opening of trout season in Pennsylvania. Now, opening day can be really crowded on the water around here, so I don't know whether I'm going to go out fishing for trout and try to shoulder my way through to a place on the water on opening day. But I probably will get out there sometime in the next few days and try to catch a few somewhere along the way here. Now, I don't catch many fish generally, and I don't keep many of the ones I do catch. There are a couple of reasons for that. First, most of the fish that I catch really are quite beautiful creatures, and I don't particularly enjoy killing them. Although I will say, a properly cooked trout fillet is a very delicious meal indeed. So I'll probably keep a few fish if I'm fortunate enough to catch some. But around here, at least, there's another reason why I don't keep and eat many of the fish I catch. I live in an older industrial part of Pennsylvania, and that means that most of the lakes and streams around here have some level of chemical contamination that's built up in the stream beds over the past 100 years or so. Near my house, for example, there's a little stream that runs through the local park. And it would be a lovely feature for that park, except for the fact that the water in that stream is bright orange. It's contaminated by runoff from old steel mill slag heaps and abandoned mine seepage. So I don't fish in that stream, mainly because my best guess is that there are no fish in that stream. It's a kind of a sad legacy of human short-sightedness. We get our money and then we leave our mess for someone else to deal with. But there's another local lake where I and many other people do in fact fish. And there are a lot of fish in that lake, and I've caught some of them. But I'm very careful about eating any of the fish that I catch there because the silt in that lake is contaminated with PCBs. It's an industrial chemical that's notorious as a cause of cancer. Now, there are bass and catfish in that lake that are big. And the big ones are all more than a few years old. And that means that they've been living in that water, swimming and eating in the chemicals that contaminate that water for years. And those chemical contaminants will have seeped into the flesh of those old fish and become more and more concentrated in their meat. And I don't want to eat those chemicals, so I don't eat those fish. If I catch any of those old fish, I enjoy the experience, and then I set them free back into the lake. Now, what's true for those old fish and their contaminated water is also true for us in a spiritual sense. I was getting around to that. We all live in a world that's not shaped by Jesus and by the values and priorities of his kingdom. We may say we love Jesus. We may say that we want him to shape our lives. We may say that we want to love what he loves and value what he values, but the world around us seeps into our hearts and minds, and it shapes what we love and what we value. And that's something that James is very much aware of and concerned about in his letter. So I'm getting around to James now. We've been seeing that as we've been working our way through the letter of James in the New Testament. And now we've come to the first verses of chapter 2. We looked at the first verse in the last episode, the last installment, but here's what James says in the verses, the rest of those first few verses. He says this: "My brothers and sisters, believers in the glorious Lord Jesus Christ must not show favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in filthy old clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, 'Here's a good seat for you,' but say to the poor man, 'You stand over there or sit on the floor at my feet,' have you not discriminated among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts. Now notice what James says there right at the end. Have you not become judges with evil thoughts? See, those evil thoughts that he refers to there are the contaminants that seep into us from the world around us. It was true in James's day, and it's still true in our day. The values and desires that are dominant in the world around us are constantly seeping into our hearts and minds and influencing what we value and what we want. Wealth, glamour, fame, celebrity, those were the worldly values that were influencing the Christians in James's church, and he's very disturbed about it. They were excited if a wealthy or famous person entered their church, but when someone poor and shabby came in, they told him to go stand in the back. Now, do I need to convince you that it's the same today? I can't believe that I really need to do that. Our televisions, our social media feeds are full of stories about rich and famous people. And that stuff is on our televisions and our social media for one reason, because that's what we mostly want to look at. And it influences the way we look at life and also the way we do church. A little while ago, I saw some news reports about some mega churches that always block off a special VIP section of seats in the front of their worship space, reserved for any famous celebrity that might show up in their worship service. I can only assume that those churches have snipped out the verses that we just read from James. But, having money or a prominent position in the community isn't necessarily a sign of spiritual maturity or importance in God's eyes. In the life of our churches, spiritual maturity and faithfulness to Jesus should be the things that we most value. Now, we may not have those kind of sections in our own churches here if we're part of a normal church, but we still get our eyes boggled by wealth and fame, and we're drawn to it, and we let it become valuable and important in our lives. And we need to be thinking about that. Let's strive to make our churches and our lives places where we value what Jesus values. Now, in our next installment of our study of James, I'm going to go into that topic a little more in the verses that follow. So does James. I'll see you then.